The following program is classified PG. We advise parental guidance is recommended for people under 15 years.
She looks like she's been born to be on camera.
She was like the girl we all lusted after when we were 15.
Suddenly people were throwing money at her to do pictures, a lot of money, and I think it made her life difficult.
The marijuana graduated into the pills, graduated into the cocaine.
She went from child star to motherhood to losing her kids, losing herself, losing everything.
It's unbelievable what she's been through, and it's unbelievable that she survived it.
America loves a comeback story, right? And, you know, she's the ultimate comeback story.
She was Hollywood's sassiest child star. Smart-mouthed, precocious, and full of talent.
No, she really had like this, attitude and kind of moxie to her.
Tatum O'Neal shot to stardom as the adorable orphan Addie, playing opposite her famous father, Ryan O'Neal, in 1973's hit Paper Moon. At 10, she became the youngest person ever to win an Academy Award.
Tatum O'Neal shows up in a tuxedo, in a mini tuxedo, which was sort of, I think, a portent of things to come, that this was not your normal, fluffy little pretty girl actress.
Suddenly, directors are calling her, people are sending her scripts, agents are trying to poach her.
Throughout the 70s, Tatum was Hollywood's youngest it girl, starring in two of her biggest hits, The Bad News Bears and Little Darlings. And she was soon making a name for herself off-screen as well.
Tatum O'Neal, invented the wild child. She was the original wild child.
Tatum would be, at these parties surrounded by adults who were drinking and smoking pot. She was exposed to way too much, and yet nobody said a thing.
Plagued by drugs, booze, and depression, teenage Tatum took a nosedive.
I just hated myself. What was there to like?
At 20, Tatum left her troubles behind to pursue love and motherhood with tennis bad boy John McEnroe. But 3 kids and 1 rocky marriage later, Tatum's hopes for happiness ended in one of the most vicious divorce and custody battles in history.
I just remember going, don't even try, Tatum. Look at me and look at you.
Tatum says battling her ex was too much to bear. She ended up returning to drugs and losing her kids.
I mean, for God's sakes, you have 3 children and you're addicted to heroin.
People thought, especially directors or casting agents, is Tatum O'Neal a risk? Can we afford to have her in this film?
After years of struggling with addiction, Tatum says she has finally gotten her act together and cleaned up her life.
I started to get really strong again, and I started getting, okay, Tatum, let's go. Get out of this. You've got your kids. How about that?
Now in her 40s, Tatum decided that it was time to go public. In 2004, she released her autobiography, A Paper Life.
She's honest in the way only a survivor can be honest. It may hurt to read it. It may cause people to cringe. For Tatum O'Neal, it's simply her life.
When Tatum O'Neal was born on November 5th, 1963, acting was in her blood. Her father, 22-year-old Ryan O'Neal, was already making quite an impression on Hollywood.
Oh, back in the day, Ryan O'Neal was beautiful. He was like the gorgeous young man. In the 60s, he starred in the TV version of Peyton Place. So he was always a heartthrob.
Ryan got his start in TV westerns, but became most famous for playing opposite Ally McGraw in Love Story.
Jenny, I'm sorry.
Don't. Love means never having to say you're sorry.
The sandy-haired actor was not only a real Romeo on-screen, off-screen, his sex life became legendary.
I mean, Bianca Jagger, Angelica Houston, Ursula Andress. I mean, the most gorgeous women in Hollywood. He had them.
But few women could actually get Ryan to commit until he met a stunningly beautiful actress named Joanna Moore.
Joanna Moore was this throaty, tough blonde, very sexy, and really a perfect match for the sweet, kind of perfect-looking Ryan O'Neal.
Sparks flew, and within weeks they were married. 9 months later, Tatum was born. Just under a year later, her younger brother Griffin came along.
I was thrilled. At 21, looking at little Tatum there, that little baby, and less than a year later, her brother, Griff, I was shocked that I had this kind of power. And for quite a while, it was very enjoyable. I did not get along with their mom.
In 1966, Joanna and Ryan divorced amid rumors of infidelity and drug use. Tatum and Griffin went to live with their mother on a dilapidated old ranch in Reseda, California. By now, Joanna's career had fizzled, and she was hitting hard times.
Their mother was a drug addict. She was addicted to pills, to speed, and that addiction ruled her life. She was very neglectful of the children.
We were always like running away, stealing, eating food out of anything, anywhere we could. It was very abusive, and nobody can imagine unless, you know, it's like, it's unbelievable how bad it was for us.
Scrawny, yet scrappy, Tatum learned how to survive. She looked after her younger brother and dreamed of one day being rescued by her father. At the time, Ryan was living in Malibu and visited his children only occasionally.
He was a beautiful man. He still is. I have a lot of fond memories of him when I was a tiny little girl.
Ryan finally came to Tatum's rescue in 1970, when he took her and Griffin from their absentee mother and sent them to boarding school in Arizona. Once there, Tatum didn't fare much better.
Just profoundly unhappy at the school. At one point, cut off her hair, sent it to her grandmother with a letter that said, "I want to come home." Eventually, she went to live with her father, Ryan, in Malibu, and it started a whole nother chapter in her life.
Griffin stayed behind, while Tatum went to live with her father at his Malibu beach house. Tatum relished the close relationship she now had with her father, who was one of the hottest leading men in Hollywood. After starring opposite Barbra Streisand in the comedy What's Up, Doc?, Ryan was offered the lead role in director Peter Bogdanovich's film about a con artist and his orphaned daughter.
I liked the idea of using Ryan, so I thought, well, maybe Ryan and Tatum, that might be interesting. Even before I'd met her, I just sort of liked the chemistry, the idea. So I told Ryan that maybe there was an idea that Tatum could maybe be involved in this. I wasn't sure, and I wanted to come down and meet her and make it casual and not tell her about the part or anything like that.
And then Peter came down to the beach house where I was living with my dad and took me for a walk on the beach, and I thought it was funny that he was wearing like this ascot, and I told him I didn't think he should go on the beach because he just really didn't look like the type of guy that should go on the beach.
I did a double take. I go, why do you say that, Tatum? Well, you know, you always wear your shoes and your shirt. And I thought, how does she know that, that I'm like that? I turned to Ryan and I said, she'll do. And that's how she got the part.
For Tatum, it would be the role of a lifetime. In 1972, 8-year-old Tatum O'Neal headed to Hays, Kansas to make her first movie, Paper Moon. Tatum could barely read, but she knew her character well. A lonely, abandoned, yet steely kid looking for love.
She was exposed to a lot of things that it probably would have been better if she hadn't have been for herself. But it helped her in the role because Addie was a girl who had seen things also.
She had a rough exterior. She was a survivor. She stepped into that role as if it had been written for her.
Tatum may have been perfect for the role, but she was still a child and had no acting experience.
He had to do a lot of takes for me because I had never worked before and I didn't, you know, like to really study. I wasn't so disciplined, so we would have to spend a lot of time running lines and doing takes, and there was a lot of action in the movie, so we would have to do, you know, take after take.
This was enough to drive her co-star, Father Ryan O'Neal, crazy. In one scene, Tatum and Ryan were driving in a car, and Tatum was trying to give him directions.
Well, that'll take us down through Lucas.
You gotta go through something that gets us somewhere.
I am not complaining. I'm just saying that'll take you through Lucas.
You gotta go through Paradise and Waldo and Lorraine
Luray, huh?
Want to get this open grow.
Those are pretty good towns in there. We could do some business in there.
She had to get the map. She had to open the map, look at the map, do business, close the map, open the thing, plus remember her lines. There was an enormous amount to put on any actor, particularly one who hadn't worked much at all.
I did not like to stay in my car with my dad. I would like jump out of all my mics and jump onto the dolly truck. And we'd have to go all the way to the end of the road. And so I would jump out of all my mics, and my dad finally just got really, 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 really annoyed. And I go, oh, are you mad at me? He goes, no, I'm just doing the lines, Tatum.
In the end, it was exactly this kind of tension that made the movie work.
The off-screen relationship that father-daughter had, good, bad, and indifferent, whatever it was complicated. And that, I think, definitely communicated itself to the on-screen relationship that the camera, the camera often picks up feelings that are between the lines, that are between gestures.
Bogdanovich's instincts to cast the two paid off. When the movie was released in May 1973, it became one of the highest-grossing films of the year and an instant cult classic. Ryan may have been the star, but it was Tatum who stole the show.
If you don't give me my $200, I'm going to tell a policeman how you got it, and he'll make you give it to me because it's mine.
But I don't have it.
Then get it.
She's just so amazing in that film, and she was only 9, but you can see the maturity in that performance. Her work was so solid.
Her talent was remarkable, and I mean, her best work is as good as anybody's work in history.
But even if Tatum was the buzz in Hollywood, she got the surprise of her life when she was nominated for an Academy Award in February 1974.
When she got nominated for the Best Supporting Actress Oscar, I mean, that was huge. I mean, it was history because people were shocked. No one at this age had ever been nominated.
And it was just insane. And I can't really remember. It was all really a blur. But, you know, I think that's when things started to get a little bit hectic between my dad and I.
Ryan O'Neal himself did not get a nomination or obviously an award. I think it was probably pretty hard for him, as happy as he was for his daughter. This was a big part for him as well. It was following Love Story. There were probably a lot of expectations on him, and therefore definitely, I'm sure, a disappointment.
On April 2nd, 1974, Tatum attended the Academy Awards, unaccompanied by her father. Tatum went with her grandparents. Not even her mother showed up.
She didn't go because she would have really embarrassed me, because at that time she was wearing a really big wig and a lot of cologne and a lot of jewelry, and it would look really funny. If she would have gone, I would have been really embarrassed. And my dad was in England, so that was kind of weird. He didn't show up.
That night, Tatum became the youngest person ever to take home Oscar. Even her outfit made headlines.
I had my suit on, my little tuxedo. My kids just saw it recently, and they're like, look how cool you look, Mom. And I had this little voice, I want to thank Peter and my dad. And I said this little funny speech. And I have this funny little pixie haircut. And I have one earring in. Like, who would have thought that I could know how to do that?
I was just very touched by her when she thanked Ryan and me. And it was you know, I had a sort of a dual feeling of happiness and a kind of sadness because I knew it was going to lead to a lot of problems.
Coming back with the statue really created a lot of tension, competitive tension between her and her father. According to her, he was very jealous, you know, that he wasn't the Oscar winner.
Tatum's life would never be the same. At 10, she was an instant celebrity, having already achieved the highest honor in Hollywood. But despite all this success, Tatum wasn't exactly the happiest little girl in Tinseltown.
I think that I was getting more conflicted. I think I was starting to not know where to turn, and I think I was maybe getting really lost.
The Biography Channel.
In 1974, Tatum O'Neal had barely finished 5th grade, and yet she was already Hollywood's darling.
And Tatum O'Neal was the youngest nominee and winner of an Academy Award ever, so that just catapulted her into the spotlight.
She instantly became the most famous child star in Hollywood, and more importantly, the highest paid child star in the history of Hollywood.
Tatum was a gold-plated Hollywood star, but all she wanted was her father's attention.
I was just so desperately needy in the way Addie was for this, please be, you know, let me be Addie Prey, you know, let me be Tatum O'Neal, your daughter, you know, please just be my dad.
In the fall, Ryan sent Tatum back to boarding school. Ryan said he wanted Tatum to have a normal life, but some people wondered if he just couldn't stand the competition. For Tatum, going back to school was like a death sentence. She wanted to act again.
I had an agent by that time, I guess, and she said, honey, I got a script for you.
Tatum was offered a starring role opposite Walter Matthau in The Bad News Bears, a film about a feisty little girl named Amanda who saves an all-boys Little League team from defeat.
Well, maybe if you guys played a little better, you wouldn't have to cover up for you all the time.
Look, woman, don't you be going until I knows how to play.
Yeah! Let that turkey loose, Buttermaker. I'll chew his ears off and stick him right back in his face. Yeah!
She had this face that was just delicious. We took her because she had a recognizability and she could play the role. And she had the qualities we felt we really needed for that role to come across well.
Well, the great irony is that the character that Tatum plays in Bad News Bears is pretty much how Tatum really is. She's kind of tough and feisty, and she's still a woman, but somehow there's this other sense, like a tomboy.
Once again, the formula worked. The movie was a hit, and Tatum captured a whole new fan base.
Bad News Bears was a classic if you were growing up in the 70s, and I think it was such a hit because boys had a huge crush on Tatum, and girls wanted to be Tatum.
She was like the girl we all lusted after when we were 15. She wasn't just sort of like a teen sensation, you know, you had a sense that she was a real actress.
She was the first person from a film that I fell in love with.
Tatum's charms were also making her a fixture on Hollywood's social circuit. Barely in her teens, Tatum and Ryan seemed to have made up enough to go to parties together.
I mean, she was sort of like the original Drew Barrymore, you know, club hopping when you're, 12 years old. Remember, it was the 70s, not an era known for moderation.
We'd pull up and it would be, Christopher Plummer or Richard Burton or, just the way it was, into the Bel Air gates, would open. And I was always there, like, with my dad. Like, when are we gonna go? When are we gonna leave? When are we gonna leave? When are we gonna leave?
Some people who saw Tatum and Ryan together found their relationship somewhat unusual.
It wasn't a father-daughter relationship. It was more that it was like she was his girlfriend, and he treated her that way. It was really weird.
In public, Tatum and Ryan made a pretty picture, but at home, things were getting ugly. Tatum claims that when her father was angry, he was verbally and physically abusive.
I mean, you still get butterflies when you think about some of the stuff he's done. I still feel like fear. Like, is he gonna come at me? Like, where is he,
She said that she was late for a racquetball game with her father. When she arrived, he punched her in the face for being late. Just shows the depth of the swings and the rage in that household.
Ryan has denied Tatum's allegations of abuse, calling them malicious lies. Tatum says at the time, she tried to keep her father happy. Despite their strained relationship, it didn't stop father and daughter from starring together again in 1976's film Nickelodeon, a comedy about the early movie business. If director Peter Bogdanovich had hoped to recapture his star's on-screen chemistry, their off-screen relationship got in the way.
She and Ryan were not getting along that well in that picture. He would get a little testy with her at times.
And he started certainly rejecting me on that picture. And because I started having he started not talking to me pretty much on that.
Nickelodeon bombed at the box office, making life with Daddy even more unbearable.
I used to wake up, is he in a good mood or in a bad mood? He was in a bad mood, I didn't like myself that day. He was like, I depended on his moods every single day. There was no other person in my life.
Tatum, who was 12 at the time, did manage to make a few friends, including 18-year-old actress Melanie Griffith. But that relationship wouldn't last. While on location with her father, Tatum says she caught Melanie and Ryan in bed together. Feeling betrayed, Tatum tried to commit suicide by slitting her wrists. When that failed, she went to her father's friend for drugs. Tatum says he molested her. Tatum had hit rock bottom, yet she still put on a brave face for the cameras. In 1977, she won the coveted role in International Velvet, the sequel to the 1944 classic starring Elizabeth Taylor.
It should have been a perfect fit. Critics were pretty tough on her, though. She had a great supporting cast. Christopher Plummer, Anthony Hopkins, they got great reviews. I think people just felt she didn't match up to the original.
Because I think I was coming in with this little, like, I sort of talked like I was like, hello, Anthony Hopkins, and hello, Christopher Plummer. You know, suddenly I was like talking like I was this little English girl. I was really sort of losing the feisty Tatum.
The film was another box office disappointment. Tatum became depressed and turned to drugs.
I think my dad smoking pot pretty much every day. And so it just seemed like the normal thing to do. You just start smoking pot or whatever. So then the marijuana graduated into the pills, which graduated into the cocaine. And
one night she was out partying with friends, partying pretty hard. Next day she was out with another friend driving up to Big Sur. Their Jeep rolled over. She was seriously hurt. She spent 6 weeks in the hospital recovering and was visited in those 6 weeks only once by each of her parents and by her agent, otherwise left alone. She said it was, you know, the lowest point of her entire childhood.
Tuesday, 7:30 on the Biography channel.
In 1979, 16-year-old Tatum O'Neal was one of the most successful child stars in Hollywood.
I mean, she had a car, she had, you know, everything. You know, she had made her own money, she had, you know, a house, she had, you know, all these clothes, and she was definitely ahead of her time.
Tatum's life may have looked perfect, but at home, she was consumed with drugs, chaos, and insecurity.
Tatum was struggling with kind of, you know, typical teenage weight gain and was concerned about her figure, and her father advised her to start using cocaine to help her lose weight, so she told me.
Tatum was caught in that awkward middle stage. She was too old to play a kid, but too young to play an adult. And after 2 box office failures, some doubted if Tatum could recapture her on-screen magic.
I mean, Addie was this tough, talking, cigarette-smoking young kid, so directors probably wanted to do that over and over again with Tatum O'Neal. Yet she's getting older, her face is changing, her voice always sort of stayed the same, which is great, but I think she wanted to do different things.
In 1980, Tatum took a gamble and embraced her inner Lolita in the coming-of-age romance Little Darlings. Tatum and fellow teen sensation Christy McNichol played girls at a summer camp, competing to see who could lose their virginity first.
Look, I don't like sharing this space with you either. You keep out of my way, and I'll keep out of yours. Deal?
It was supposed to be a comedy, but behind the scenes, Tatum wasn't laughing.
When we first started the film, she wasn't the natural, open Tatum O'Neal that I had seen in her previous movies.
Director Ronald Maxwell ended up calling Ryan for help.
He flew in within a day or 2 at the most to our set in Georgia. He talked with her in private, and overnight, she really opened up in a way, and then from then on, she delivered the performance that we were looking for in the film.
When Little Darlings opened, it was a huge hit with teenagers, despite being widely panned by critics. It would be Tatum's last taste of box office success. Later that year, she tried to win back critics by starring opposite one of the world's greatest actors, Richard Burton, in Circle of Two.
It sounds like a punchline to a bad joke. I don't know that anyone would ever think to pair those two. She plays a young, obviously young, beautiful woman who gets the attention, or tries to get the attention of a 60-year-old artist, played by Richard Burton. Again, the ick factor is kind of high here.
In the film, Tatum ended up doing her first nude scene, something she later regretted.
So we thought, my agent and I, that it would be done in a very sort of elegant way. I think that I felt very exploited. I wish I'd never done it.
This time, both her fans and the critics were turned off. It seemed Tatum's career had hit a new low, and so too had her personal life, thanks to Ryan's latest girlfriend.
Tatum hated Farrah, like just hated her and despised her. I mean, it is a surprise. I mean, like, hello, you know, like your dad moves out of the house while you're still a teenager to hook up with Farrah Fawcett.
He just moved out. And so he said, take Griffin, I'm out. You raise Griff, I'm moving in with Farrah. We're selling the house. She didn't care about us. I mean, I'd like to say that she did. She didn't care that he was selling our house. She didn't care. And she has said in interviews, I think, well, that's what people do. Wait. Farrah, sorry. Tatum, okay, pull together. That's what people do when they're in love. Okay, we were 14 and 15. Okay, that's old enough, I guess. Right?
With her father off with Farrah and her mother still battling addiction, Tatum had no one to turn to. She and Griffin were left once again to fend for themselves.
Well, she was like Griffin's mother. I mean, she like raised Griffin. She was great with Griffin. Yeah, they were like brother and sister, but like she was like his mother also.
But playing the role of mother was getting harder and harder to do. By 20, Tatum was addicted to cocaine, and her little brother was having his own problems with drugs and alcohol.
I could not take care of Griffin. He would not let me. So, and he was getting steadily and steadily worse into drugs, and I could not take care of him. So I had to kind of, he was driving around, he was getting into drunk driving accidents. He was really not doing well.
By 1984, Tatum was burned out. She vowed to leave Los Angeles and her troubles behind. One night, she got the chance. Tatum went to a party in Beverly Hills when a young man introduced himself. It was bad boy John McEnroe, the #1 tennis player in the world, known for his angry outbursts on the court.
I remember I was sitting down, and he came and sat right next to me, and he goes like, hi. I was like, hey, what's up? And he was like, what's up? And I was like, I know, just like hanging out. It was really, really cute and really, really like sat right there, like not like right there or not right there, but like right next to me, like boom.
Despite their mutual attraction, Tatum didn't end up seeing John again until she called him a few weeks later.
And I just was like, hey, John, it's Tatum. Like, what are you doing? He goes, I said, I'm coming to New York. He goes, don't come. I just got suspended. I'm coming to LA. So I was like, okay. And he flew to LA, and we ended up having our first real date at Farrah Fawcett's house. And it was freezing, and it was kind of weird. It was a little awkward. There was some kind of illicit activity going on. And we really actually were never apart after that, really, for 9 straight years. We were like in love, actually, really and truly. Totally in love.
They were very protective of each other. And what I witnessed a lot was they were in their own world together, and everybody else was on the other side of the fence. You know, it was John and Tatum, and everybody else, you know, was on the other side of the fence. And they were very affectionate and loving.
Tatum thought she had found the man of her dreams, and they didn't waste any time getting serious. In September 1985, Tatum discovered she was pregnant.
It gave me a sense of belonging, and it gave me a sense of what I was doing here, and it gave me a real purpose in the world that I didn't know that I had before.
Almost overnight, Tatum says she swore off drugs and alcohol. On May 23, 1986, Kevin Jack McEnroe was born. Tatum now had a family and hoped to put her painful past behind her. In what seemed like a first step, Tatum did not invite any member of her own family to her wedding on August 1st, 1986, in Oyster Bay, Long Island.
Griffin wasn't there. No one was there. She wasn't close with them. And I don't think John wanted them to come. I'm sure at times you regret things like that. But then she was fine at her wedding. She was happy as could be.
But Tatum's happiness would not last. In 1986, after 20 years in Tinseltown, Tatum left her career and her demons behind to become a wife and mother.
When she and McEnroe married, it was almost as if Tatum needed somebody to take her out of this world to help her escape for her own survival. You know, John took her from Los Angeles to New York and away from her family. And it was probably the only way she survived.
I think she thought she found the man of her dreams, and she grabbed onto the hold of the idea of having her own family, having felt that she didn't really have a strong family that she came from.
Family became Tatum's focus. A year later, she gave birth to their second son, Sean McEnroe. Tatum wanted to give her kids a better life than she had had.
She remembered what it was like to come home to no parents, to be shipped off to boarding school, to be on the set of a movie where everyone thought that her life was so glamorous, where she really was very lonely and wanted to have friends and wanted a mother or a father who would just read her a bedtime story or help her with her homework. So when she had children, she made a promise to herself that her children would not have this kind of a life.
But keeping her family together meant always being on the road. John, who had been the #1 tennis player in the world, was now struggling to regain his title. Tatum's life quickly became one tournament after another.
I think that's when it started to get hard for her, you know, picking up and not being able to have her own career and, you know, just traveling all the time was hard.
As John's game slipped, Tatum says he brought his trademark tantrums home. She claims he started blaming her for his losses.
He was having a hard time taking that responsibility, and I think that I, because of my background, was an easy target. But it was not my fault. I did not make him lose.
Tatum says she tried to be a supportive wife, but once again found herself the victim of abuse.
We were having incidents everywhere. He was screaming at me a lot and constantly screaming and whispering in my ear and just like putting me down and stuff, and I could not take any more abuse. I had already had too much, and I already have in my life.
John has denied ever abusing Tatum. In a written statement, he said, "I continue to be very disappointed in Tatum's interpretation of my life and the lives of our children. I had hoped that after all these years, she would see things more accurately, and that she would share my concern for the welfare of our children." Tatum says she tried to keep her family together, but not even the birth of their third child, Emily, in 1991, could bring John and Tatum closer. In the fall of 1992, their marriage exploded.
There have been several stories told about how it ends. Tatum describes John pushing her down the staircase, kicking her out of the house.
And I really did just run out. And then he grabbed me and he was like, "No, what are you doing?" And I went, "No, thank you. You actually are giving me an opportunity." And he was like, "Where do you think you're going?" And I went, "No, really, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you."
If Tatum's marriage was bad, her divorce was hell. Almost immediately, John and Tatum were fighting over everything, from property to their kids.
It was a terrible, terrible divorce. They hated each other.
And I remember him saying to me, "If you ever leave me, you will never get your kids." And then I went, how am I going to survive this? And I have no one. You know.
In her despair, Tatum turned once again to drugs. But this time, things got much more serious.
In 1994, Tatum hooked up with a young poet, musician, who introduced her to heroin. And she began snorting it, and then smoking it, and then shooting it.
I think I needed like a panacea or something. And, but once I started that, it just became such a spiral out of control, you know? And it went from one treatment to another treatment to another treatment to another treatment. And John, suddenly it gave John, like, it was like, yes, look at her. You know, she's just as bad off as ever, you know.
During this time, Tatum's mother, who herself suffered from drug addiction, became sick with lung cancer. Tatum immediately flew to California to care for her.
And every weekend, she would be so much sicker. And all she ever wanted me to do was be sweet. Like, she would just say, honey, just be sweet. And like telling me that, because like the one thing that I'm really not is like, I'm not that sweet. You know, and I'd always be like, Mom, I'm not, that's what I'm not. She's like, but yes, you are, baby. You are sweet. And I'm like, okay. And I just ended up like getting her like a hospice. And then she died actually in my arms, my mom.
Her mother's death sent Tatum reeling. She lost touch with many of her friends and plunged deeper into drugs.
I didn't know. I think she hid it really well. But I mean, I could see drugs or something, but I didn't know it was heroin. Wow.
In the most harrowing incident, she described to me how her daughter barged into her room and found her in the act of doing heroin, and that was bottom for her.
Still to this day, like, I'm working on how much shame I feel and how, you know, how embarrassed I am in front of my kids. And
John sued for full custody of the kids and won. At 38, Tatum had lost what was most dear to her. She now faced the fight of her life. In 2001, 38-year-old Tatum O'Neal was a shadow of her former self. Once America's most beloved child star, she was now a junkie.
It's like, little Addie, what happened to our little Addie? You know, the heroin, the divorce, you know, all of that.
Tatum really started what I would call a free fall and withdrew, you know. She just withdrew from everybody by her own choice.
Despite several stints in rehab, Tatum couldn't kick her addiction. At one point, she says she almost died.
I got very, very bad off out there for a period of time, to the point where I really did almost pass away.
Ultimately, Tatum says it was her brother who saved her. Griffin, who was now sober, started dragging his older sister to his 12-step meetings. Then, Tatum says, a miracle happened. She got a call from her 10-year-old daughter, Emily.
She goes, get back to New York right now. And I said, I've got to do this and that. And she was like, tell me you have a family. And I was, okay, fine. And I started just jarring loose this crap and started like, get out of the self-pity, get out of the crap, and get up, girl. Like, go, let's get out of this right now. And I started getting really tough.
She loves those kids more than anything. And there was just a real moment of clarity, I think, on this last round, and everything kind of came to fruition at a certain point, and she picked herself up and just has continued to get better and better and better.
As Tatum slowly recovered, she began to pick up the pieces of her life. She wanted to work again, but getting her career back on track wouldn't be easy.
Tatum definitely has to prove herself again. You know, she had a great reputation, then she had a bad reputation. So people don't know quite what they're going to get when she walks in the door.
It's a real struggle for me now. Like, I have to audition all the time, and then with my history, people are like, oh my God, is she okay? Insurance, you know. Ooh. Do you know what I mean? They're like, oh, I don't know, you know, Tatum O'Neal.
Then in 2003, Tatum got a huge break when she was cast in the hit TV show Sex and the City.
Hey, Carrie, what a surprise.
Well, I was in the neighborhood. I thought you might want these back.
Oh, you didn't have to return these. I had forgotten all about them.
Any news on my shoes?
You know what? No, it's weird.
She was phenomenal on that, and she got a lot of great reviews for it and a lot of laughs, and really showed her back. And really, you know, people who were her fans from before got to see her in a great way with the, you know, working with the really respectable actors and a great show, and kind of showed that, you know, that she really has it, and really, you know, kind of, it was like a window to a bigger thing to come.
But as Tatum revived her career, her personal life was still in shadow. In 2002, John McEnroe released his autobiography, depicting his ex-wife in a less than flattering light.
John wrote that she wasn't a very good mother. He described her drug problems. He talked about their marriage falling apart. He talked about their conflicts, and that was very difficult for Tatum to accept.
Tatum decided to fight back, and in 2004 released her own autobiography, A Paper Life. In the book, Tatum tries to set the record straight.
If you'd seen movies or had an idea of me, that maybe I was just a wife, a mother who had just turned into a drug addict and had a lot of money and decided to just lose my kids and just was a party girl. Maybe you think differently now after reading the book.
This is a cathartic thing, this book, for her, that she's able to, like, you know, tell the truth and get these demons that have been haunting her out of her.
Whatever the truth, the book has not made her father very happy. Tatum portrays Ryan as an uncaring, abusive, and violent man. Ryan, who was diagnosed with leukemia in 2001, hasn't spoken to his daughter in more than a year. He responded to Tatum's book with a written statement. It is unfortunate that Tatum has chosen to write a book that depicts the life that she lives in such a negative manner. It is a sad day when malicious lies are told in order to become a bestseller. As a father, it is my hope that this book was written to serve as her therapy, and I can only support her healing process, good, bad, and ugly. It is now my hope that she gets sober, so that her perception of the future is nothing like her clouded memories of the past. But it seems that Tatum, now in her 40s, is ready to focus on the brighter things in her life, including her children and her career.
I think she's very resilient. I think she has some of Addie's stick-to-itiveness. I think she is determined to prevail against all odds.
You know, she is a survivor. I think she's finally conquered the inner demons and kind of found her footing in life.
She wants to live. She wants to enjoy life. It hasn't been easy for her, but she's got a lot of fight in her.
Stars her own age.
It was fun. Working with people your own age, it's so nice because you can have always someone to hang out with on the set, so it's really nice.
Kirsten also shared the screen with someone her own age in Dick, a spoof about the Watergate break-in. Her